everyone. Welcome to the new year. It is 2019. Woo-hoo! And we are absolutely proud and excited to welcome you all to the Go Loco Podcast, the unofficial Local Guides podcast. That is right. This is episode 1. And in this episode, we will be focusing a lot on what this podcast is all about, the people behind it, a little bit about the Local Guides program, the structure of the podcast, how it came to be, and what to expect for the coming months. So we have a lot to cover, and it is going to be super, super awesome. We have so many ideas, and we cannot wait to get it all out to you. So buckle up, stay tuned, and listen to this podcast.
Go local with us, go local with adventure, your unofficial cast to all things local guides. Yeah!
My name is Adrian. I'm the co-creator of this podcast, and I'm super thrilled to have with me today 4 very talented ladies who have helped me bring this project from concept to what we have right now. So ladies, please introduce yourselves, a simple who you are, where you're from, what local guides level you're at now, and a fun fact too. We'll start in alphabetical order. So that's you, Kim.
Hey, I'm Kimberly Ann Graham, and I am in the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, San Jose to be specific, which is about 45 minutes south of the city proper. I am a local guide level 8, and I'm working super hard to get to 9. I'm about 3/4 of the way or a little more there. Fun fact about me is that I drive Uber for a living, which means that I get to use maps all day long and find all kinds of fun places to eat when I have a break.
How long have you been Ubering around?
I have done Uber for 4 years, but I did it more on the side up until this past July 2018. And at that point, I decided that I could make it as my only job. So I have been doing that since July. Lots of freedom when you drive Uber.
I'm Pedi from Singapore. Hint, it's not in China. Currently, I'm level 8, slowly working my way up. I pegged the start of my time in local guides, so when I first came out with the original t-shirts, I remember rushing points for the deadline to get the t-shirts, which I then had a cooking accident with that involved red wine exploding onto the ceiling and my t-shirt. I was really sad when that happened. A fun fact about me is that aside from my day job, I do musicals. I love singing, acting, and can kind of dance a little.
Hey, Pedi, it looks like I'm going to have to check out your singing and dancing the next time we meet up. But anyway, hey everyone, my name is Shirley. I'm from the beautiful city of Vancouver in Canada. I just became a level 9 local guide recently after uploading a ton of my photos from my travels. I do love to eat, and I've traveled to various cities and created a food list. One time in Hong Kong, my friend and I went to 10 different places just to try food in one day. Sometimes I think I'm going to turn into a ball, but I have to balance the eating out with exercise, and my go-to exercise is doing laps. A lot of laps back and forth in the swimming pool.
Have you been doing that for a long time?
Yeah, I've been swimming competitively for many years when I was much younger. And then I took about 10 years off, and then now I'm just getting back into it. But mostly right now, it's just for exercise.
All right, okay. So you're now a competitive food eater then?
Yeah, let's go with that. So if you've got any good food that you think I should try, let me know.
I eat a lot as well.
Can't wait till the next time we meet then, Adrian.
Yeah, that's what you said. I'm still waiting for that hot pot thing.
We're still bitter about that, aren't we?
Yeah, well, I am. You're probably not. For the listeners out there, what the backstory to this was that Shirley and I have been meeting each other at the Connect event for since 2016, so 3 years now, and each time we were saying that, oh, we'll meet up and do a hot pot, but it never happened. Or at least I never get invited to the hot pot, and that's why I'm bitter. But it's all right, this hopefully 2019, we'll see if I can get in. I have no idea, but yeah.
That hot pot's happened once and only once. But let's try for 2019 and hopefully both you and I have more days to take off from work this time around.
Oh my gosh, I'm so petty about just that one-time pot event. It's all right. It's all right. Okay, on to the next person then.
Namaskar, everyone. I'm Vandana from the bustling city of Bengaluru. I would call myself a typical Bangalorean who loves her idlis and dosas. I believe in living life to the fullest and enjoying every moment of it. I got involved in the local guides program about 1.5 years back. And in fact, it was around the time that I took my first solo trip to Norway, which is pretty exciting. I'm currently a level 8 local guide. A fun fact about me is that I quit my full time job to pursue my passion for traveling, and my bucket list currently has 21 countries ticked off.
Wow, that is amazing. And how many countries are there in total on your bucket list?
It's 198.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got quite a bit more to go.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I quit early because I didn't want to wait.
Well, you're very lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And as for myself, I'm originally from Malaysia, so not too far away from Pedi. But for the past 19 years or so, I have been living and working in the UK, and I'm currently based in Manchester. I've been involved in the local guides program from way back when it was originally called City Experts, and I'm still a level 8. I guess I believe in being slow and steady. A fun fact about myself, my dad knew the former Sultan of Malaysia, and when I was young, about 12 years old or thereabouts, he took me on a visit to see the royal family. I only have very limited memory of the occasion. I remember a sit-down meal with the family and riding in one of the VIP cars with a police escort, and that's about it. But it was like the closest thing I've ever been to, I guess, to royalty. And it was quite intriguing.
That sounds really fun, Adrian.
I wish I could remember more of it and I was a bit older to appreciate it better and, maybe write a review about the palace or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so we now know a little bit about the people behind this podcast. And I assume if you're listening to this podcast, you pretty much know about the Local Guides program. But just in case, and if you don't, I think we should talk a bit more about what it is. So Kim, you probably have been involved as long as I have. So why don't you tell the listeners what the program is all about?
Yes, I started with City Experts as well back in the day. And how to describe the local guide program? I would say that local guides are crowdsource for Google Maps. We put things on maps. Anyone that's done a single review is a local guide. You could be a local guide and never even know it.
Now, the weird thing is that Google tend to automate the process with scripts and programs. So why do you think they like a human to do all this info searching and adding to maps?
Well, now we do have a lot of ways in which they collect information through those scripts, like the questions and that sort of thing. But it hasn't always been that way. So the most reliable source for actual information is somebody who's standing on the street in front of the store looking at the open hours or taking a photo and sharing that on maps. Those are things that automation doesn't do.
And I guess that if the information is not there on internet yet, Google can't find it to add it to maps. So they rely on us local guides to find the new things and really put it on the map really quickly, isn't it?
Yeah. No, there's no substitute for a human being quite yet. We're getting close, but we're not there.
Yay, lucky for us.
Yay.
Shirley, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, in addition to adding things onto Google Maps, there's also an online community forum. This is the official community for all the local guides around the world. If you've never come across it, you can definitely check it out. Just Google Local Guides Connect and you'll see an online forum. And it's broken down into various different sections, allowing you to share your stories based on what your passions are. So for example, if you're really into photography, You can share some of the photos that you've taken throughout your time as a local guide. You can tell others how you've taken these photos. For example, what type of settings you've used on your camera. If photos isn't your thing and food is, then there's definitely a whole section on food. You can share various items from your own country, your culture. So be sure to check that out. Lots of local guides from around the world would love to hear your story.
If I remember correctly as well, it's localguidesconnect.com. That's where you need to go to. And the other sections that they have there besides travel and photography is food, local stories, and meetups,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. Yeah. Meetups is another segment or activity that local guides are actively involved in that needs to be highlighted as well.
Yeah, so in addition to an online community, you can also meet up with other local guides that are in and around your city. Or even if you're traveling to a new city, you can definitely consider hosting a meetup to meet with those local guides there so that they can show you the ins and outs of the city. So you can go to the meetup website from localguidesconnect.com. You can check out all the different meetups that are around the world, what's in and around your city or at a city that you're going to be traveling to. This way, you can also meet people not just online, but also in real life.
Yep. So if I get this right, local guides program, you can basically do it on your own if you really wanted to. So you can go and visit new places, new restaurants, and do reviews and take photos and add all this information on. But if you're also really keen on it, you could also meet up with other local guides, either through the online community or in real life by hosting meetups. And Vandana and Pedi, what about the two of you? How long have you both been involved in the program?
I have been involved in this program for about 18 months or so and enjoyed every moment of it.
For me, early t-shirt days, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago.
Ah, right. So it is a bit of a mix then. So what does the program mean to you both?
At the beginning, it was all about points. It was exciting to level up and get new badges. It was fascinating. There was some childish joy in getting all of these things. But then later, it was more about adding meaningful content and reviews, making sure photos showed all the important visual information people would get from these photos. So then it became more meaningful. And so it's been a great journey so far.
And you hit level 8 local guides in 18 months?
Yes. In fact, I think in about 2 months back, I think I became a level 8.
That is crazy. You must be super active.
No. I know of a couple of local guides who were so passionate about it that, it's like, I think of their full-time job. There have been so many people adding new places to maps constantly.
Yep. I can so totally relate to that because I've also met so many awesome local guides out there that are just so inspirational. And what about yourself, Pedi?
Well, 2 things. The first thing is that I like helping to give people accurate information on maps, especially when it comes to things like food, restaurants, routes, entrances, parking lots, like small things like that. The second is sort of a byproduct of constant contribution to maps. I get a diary of sorts of all the places I've been to and records of what to eat, what not to eat at each place, what to look out for. And even if I go back to a place that I've forgotten I've been to, I can check my review and just look at, what I should avoid or what I should try to eat again.
Aha, you're just like me. You use a timeline feature as well.
Yeah. Or like if I go to a restaurant, it's kind of automatic now. I'll look at the reviews of a place. And then sometimes mine will pop up at the top and be like, oh, I've been here. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I am so in love with that feature. It is the most amazing and useful feature on Google Maps. On any given date, I can search back and find out where I've been to. It is just wow. So it could be today, yesterday, last month, whatever it is. But I don't know. I feel like I'm getting older and it's really hard to keep track of where I've been to. But with this timeline feature on Google Maps, it's just really easy to have access to all the information and just go back and go like, oh, I've been here before and I've been here on this particular dates. And you know what? I can use those dates and then pop it into my Google Photos and do a search. and see all the food pictures I've taken as well. So it kind of all links up together really well. And I don't know, I just find it a really, really awesome and useful feature to have. So I've been to Singapore before and I've used Google Maps to explore and all that stuff, but I've never actually paid attention to the number of reviews that are available on a particular place. So do Singaporeans like to leave reviews a lot? Are they very active?
There are surprisingly a lot of reviews. Like people in Singapore like to give an opinion on like everything. So yeah.
Okay. Opinionated Singaporeans? Who would have thought, eh? For all you listeners out there, I hope you get a really good idea about what the program is all about and what it can do for you. It will differ from one person to another, mainly because it kind of comes down to how much time and effort you want to put into it, as well as what you want to take from it. So if you are an active member who likes to share and contribute a lot back into the community, you can do so. Or if you like to explore a place and do things on your own, that is also absolutely fine. So the Local Guides program is really flexible. You can do basically whatever you want to do and how you want to approach the program. But what I can tell you from my personal experience is that doing it together with someone else is just so much more enriching. You will find that you will learn a lot from other people through their own experiences and also the information and knowledge that they have about a particular area or topic or subject. So everybody is kind of like a specialist in certain areas. And it's just really cool and awesome to be able to sit down and talk to other people and find out new things. So doing things together is great. Doing things on your own is also great. It's all up to you. Like every good journey, we need to know where we have come from, where we are going to, and why the monkeys are we doing this. So this podcast is kind of my idea. It's my little baby project that I wanted to do for 2019. And I chose podcasting because Google has the official Connect forum at localguidesconnect.com, which is like this central hub where all local guides can go to and post all matters of stuff there. So, like chat to folks, make new friends, learn new things, stuff like that. And they also have accounts at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So they pretty much covered all their bases, except podcasting. And I can understand why, because, not everybody listens to podcasts. I guess the audience for podcasts might be a little bit limited, but nonetheless, here we are, filling that gap, and hopefully we will all make you regular listeners to this podcast. And we really hope that you will enjoy this format and learn something new from it. So I floated the idea with Tracy, the community program manager at Google, as I just wanted to make sure that we were okay to do this and that it didn't clash with any of their own plans for 2019. Needless to say, we got her blessings and here we are. And just to really stress this, we are unofficial. We do not work for Google. We do not get paid for this. In fact, we are doing this in our own free time and spending our own money. And unless you hear it directly from a Google employee, the stuff that we will cover here on this podcast are of our own opinions. I then approached Kim, Shirley, Pedi, and Vandana initially as potential guests for the podcast, and that just evolved to everybody becoming a steering committee of sorts, where you all have been helping me to flesh this thing out. And I guess that's where you guys were so passionate and so excited and interested about this project as well, that rather than just being just regular guests, you all decided to really help me out and make this a success. So, that's a major thank you to all of you. By the way, what were all your reactions when I broached this idea to you?
When you mentioned it to me, we were pretty fresh from Connect Live. So, of course, super excited to do anything with local guides after such a fun 2 weeks of constant interaction with other local guides. And I thought to myself, well, what do I have to share? And it didn't take too long for me to realize that we all have different knowledge sets when it comes to local guides. I use maps all day driving Uber, so there's a lot of things in maps that I know of that it turns out that other local guides at level 8 might not know about. And how do you figure that out? You start talking about it. And then you find out they don't know about it. You can share your knowledge and we can all level up together.
Mine was, I've never listened to a podcast in my life, but this sounds like fun. We should totally do it.
Well, Adrian's full of ideas. One time we randomly started doing cartwheels in a field at Summit. So I wasn't sure what he had in mind this time when he messaged me. But let's just say I was very curious as well. I definitely thought it was an interesting idea. There's so many ways to get information out to people nowadays with the internet, whether it's through video, forums, and I think podcast is one of those things that often people tend to overlook. So I definitely thought it was really interesting and an area that Local Guides hasn't really sort of been that heavily involved in, whether it's officially or unofficially. So I think this was definitely a good way to sort of capture a different group of audience that may or may not be as involved or perhaps do not know so much about the program, and just sort of tell them what we're all about.
And Vandana, what about yourself? What were your initial thoughts when I talked about this project to you?
I was so thrilled and felt honored to be a part of it. Like Kim mentioned, we were just fresh out of Connect Live event and getting to be a part of it in a smaller group. Talking about it was really exciting. And I already started to think of ideas for future episodes. I started to visualize what the reactions of our listeners would be. I was really excited to say the least.
I'm the same as well, because when I thought the idea, I thought this is actually a really cool way to reach out to people. I like the fact that they can hear our voice and, it lends a nice global sense to the community because we all have our own accents and we all have our own knowledge and things we can share and talk about. And as to our goals and objectives for this podcast, well, I wrote down a few mission statements, stuff that we can keep going back to when we're thinking of new ideas and episodes to make sure that we're still on target and meeting our original objectives. So I'll just read these 4 mission statements out. To promote the Local Guides program through the medium of a podcast, to complement the official Local Guides sites such as Connect, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and help disseminate useful information about the program, to inspire and educate others by discovering and promoting Local Guides who have interesting and exciting stories, experiences, or passions, to have important and insightful discussions about the Local Guides program. So hopefully you all agree with those mission statements as well. I think they're fairly robust enough, and I think it's good stuff that we can aim for and make sure that we succeed in every podcast that we do. So the next bit that we are going to cover is the structure of the podcast. I'm the guy who, as an engineer by trade, really likes structure, guidelines, targets, deadlines, etc. I know, boring. And that's why you get me talking about all these details. And I think the others are just more creative and they just want to get on with it and just like, they're all excited and they're ready to go off and make their own podcast. But I'm like, no. We'll slow down, we'll make some plannings and we'll do it right. Yes. I'm thinking more like, well, how are we going to market this? How do we have a common structure so that listeners will know what to expect? The podcast will have a simple structure of introduction, announcement, main topic, Q&A, next episode, and closing. So what do I mean by announcement? Well, the announcement segment will be a quick shout out to exciting news and announcements, maybe upcoming meetups or projects that we think folks should be excited about and support. The next episode segment is going to be like announcing, the next episode. We will let you know what the topic is going to be or who we are interviewing. And we would love for you to send us your questions for the episode. So you have literally about 2 weeks to do so. It will be roughly 30 to 45 minutes long. It will vary from episode to episode because we all have our own style and our own way of doing things. But that is kind of roughly the idea that we're going to go for. It can be longer, but it just means a whole lot more work needs to be involved. And we are all doing this in our free time. So, I just set a shorter target to make sure that we're okay with it. We are also targeting a release date of 1 episode every 2 weeks. We are looking at the 2nd and 4th week of the month. hopefully on the same day each time so that you can sit there waiting in anticipation to download the next exciting episode. What can you expect in a podcast? Well, we can do a solo episode, maybe talking about something that we are passionate about, or it can be an interview with one or more guests, or it can be a panel discussion. So it will be in English because we want to make sure that it is accessible by everyone. But I really like having a global flavor, so I'm fine to get a non-English speaker as long as we can get some sort of translation going on. So we haven't quite worked out how we're going to do this, but once we do, we'll have it as an option. Having heard all that, do any of you have any questions and comments so far?
I have a question. Can we switch it to like once every 3 weeks?
Breaking news, everybody. We suddenly have a vacant spot for a podcast host on our channel.
Oh no, am I gonna get replaced now?
All jokes aside, Pedi, it is a very good question, and one that I don't quite have a firm answer to. We initially put down a once every 2 weeks guideline. It's basically a target for us to aim for and hopefully achieve. But as time goes on, if we find that it becomes too challenging for us, we might change that. Because you know what? We're not professionals. We are doing this in our own free time. So that means it's on top of our day-to-day jobs, which are challenging enough. And because there are quite a few technical hurdles, it is not an easy process. But the idea is that we're going to have multiple hosts, so it will give us time to plan and do things. Unfortunately for me, I'm doing episode 2 and 3, so it will be challenging because I'm doing back-to-back episodes. But hopefully that will give time to everybody else to come to grips with the app and also learn about audio editing. And there's quite a bit to learn. And hopefully I'll teach you guys how to do it all, and it'll be a breeze when it comes time for you to host your own episode. So there you go. That's your answer. And you know what? We do like a good challenge, don't we?
Yeah, I think we all like challenges, so we'll see how it goes. But this is a podcast for all of you listeners. So definitely let us know what you want to hear about or when you want to hear about something. As many of you probably know, Local Guides have been hosting an annual event. And generally, we know when the applications come out. So if you want to hear more about that process around that time, let us know. Or if there's other events or questions that you may have, just drop us some feedback. If we don't have the answer, we'll try to find out for you.
That is certainly a great advice there. So, I mean, that is one of my focus for this podcast, which is to get everybody ready for Connect Live.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been going on for a few years now. Lots of videos and lots of photos over the last couple of years. And I think we've got probably a lot of listeners that are really interested and keen to learn a bit more about the event. So I think this is a good way for all of us here to share some of our experiences. Some of us have been once, some of us have been more than once. So we'll all have different insights that we are definitely ready to share with you.
Mm-hmm. It makes it certainly more difficult for us to reapply, I guess, if we're making everybody really good at applying. But you know what? This is for the overall good. And I think we're happy to be able to assist other people. And I also like the idea that, fresh faces get to go to Connect Live and experience the magic that we all experience there. So, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes just with new faces, there's always new ideas as well. So you never know what might happen in the next little while.
Yep. And you might have a new hot pot group. So, that's a win-win-win.
The next time I'm having hot pot, I'm going to take a photo and I'm going to Photoshop you in. I'm just saying.
With a thumbs up, please. Okay.
Yep. I'm going to put your picture in there with me. And it'll be as if you were there and, or maybe I'll even call you. I'll video call you or something.
Nah, I'll be fine. I'm so over this hot pot thing. So over it. Now that we are all clear on the structure, let's find out more about how we made this happen. Again, we are all new to this. This is our very first time making a podcast. So how do we get from idea to a final recording? Well, for me, one of the key pieces of this is the Anchor app.
Adrian, you mean I gotta figure out another app? That was sort of the first thought that came to my mind, but I'm kidding. The podcasts I've listened to have always been work related, which is really, really boring. So for me to be able to talk about something outside of work, I've been quite curious. So after Adrian pitched the idea to myself and sort of wrangled all of us into a hangout chat, we just sort of talked our way through and we've been on Hangout, Slack. Am I missing something else here, Vandana? I can't keep track.
Yeah, I think we used Google Calendars to just get our meetings in place and Google Drives to get common files and putting all the documents in place, the structure. So, yeah, a lot of various apps, and finally it's come together. I came to know about this Anchor app only after you told us about it. It's a pretty neat app with so many features just built into it. I like the fact that there's a desktop version too. So once you record your clips, it's easy to manage all of those things on a desktop version. It's designed in a way that even a novice can pick it up and start using it right away. Their resource section is extremely helpful with a lot of articles, and they have a lot of best practices and advice on how to get started. They also have a YouTube channel where you can listen to all their podcasts, which helps the new beginners to get started.
Okay, you say that this is designed in a way that even a novice can pick it up and start using it right away. I think we're going to find out if that's true or not. So far, it's been very interesting, and I think that it will continue to be interesting playing around with this particular technology. I've always enjoyed trying new things. I'm one of the original Google Glass explorers. This would fall into that category.
Okay, I know it sounds like it, people, but no, Anchor is not paying us for this. Yeah, maybe eventually, if we get big enough.
Well, Pedi, we probably will have to wait and see, but I wouldn't hold my breath. As it is, the Anchor app certainly is pretty nifty, and we are all still playing around with it and exploring what it can and cannot do. For now, it meets our needs, and I'm pretty much pleased with that. Amongst the five of us, I'm probably the one that has used the Anchor app the most, mainly because I'm making recordings and pulling all the bits together to create episode 1. So far, in using the Anchor app, it's been fine. The obvious benefits is that it simplifies the process of recording a podcast, but in that simplicity also lies its weakness, in the sense that there are not a lot of controls in place to tweak all the settings. At the moment, I'm using 2 other apps. One is called Timber, just making sure because I don't want to get my pronunciation wrong, and it is not Tinder. And the other app is Wave Editor. If I was a regular PC user, I would probably use the free software Audacity, but I'm very much a mobile-centric user, so Wave Editor has been my primary audio editor, and it's got a lot of really nifty features, from removing hisses and pops, editing out the multiple times that I go, splicing and joining clips together, and all that stuff. Timber comes in handy when I have problems opening files in Wave Editor. Anyway, not going to go too much into details. All I can say is that my inexperience in recording also meant there's a lot of editing to be done. And going back to the Anchor app, one of the coolest features that it has, which I don't think the other podcast creation apps have, is the ability to interact with the podcast as you listen to it. If you are using the Anchor app to listen to the podcast, at any point during the podcast, you can send us an applause. So do me a favor. Whenever you hear me speaking, just keep pressing that applause button. Keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing. And more interestingly, you can also send a voicemail. You heard that right. A voicemail. That means you can leave a comment or a question right at the point where you think, I've got something to say about that. Like, maybe right now?
Very interesting. Who's going to be in charge of listening to the voicemails? Because that could be fun.
Well, Kim, we're all co-hosts of this channel, so any of us can access those voicemails. And it's going to be really, really cool. I cannot wait to hear what people have to say about us. Hopefully, they're all positive stuff. And hopefully, there'll be some questions in there as well for any of us.
Would it be possible for us to include any of those little voicemail clips?
Yes, those voicemails exist as audio clips that we can include into future episodes. So how cool is that? We can play back those voicemails for everybody to listen to. So yeah, if you're going to leave us a voicemail, please make sure that you tell us who you are, where you're from, and then you can just fire away with your comments or your questions. And if you like to, you can also direct those questions to any of us. So for instance, you could say, I've got a question for that sexy voice Kim. Yep, you can do that. Okay, so I've covered some of the apps that I've used to make this podcast. But before I go on to the next section, I've got a few more questions to ask. Out of curiosity, what are the lessons that we've all learned from making this podcast?
How to speak with breaks inserted so that we don't talk over each other.
Yes, yeah, that is true. I'm also trying my best not to make any noise when you guys are speaking, because it's really hard to hear two people speaking at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm trying to make sure I try to keep my phone as far away from the window because it's catching a lot of background noise. Because right now there's a street dog barking out, and I'm just crossing my fingers that there's no train that passes by because my home is just close to the railway track. So all of these challenges.
Okay, last question. Do you like hearing your own voice? Now, my simple answer to that is no. I've done a few recordings, like test recordings and trial recordings, and I just can't get used to my own voice. I just always find it really weird. In my head, it sounds really deep, like a macho, sexy voice. But in reality, it's like a chipmunk. And it's, well, okay, I call it the Mickey Mouse voice. And it takes me a while to get used to it, and I'm not even sure I can get used to it. That's just me, weird as always.
I'm never thrilled with my voice. I'm hoping that I don't sound too much like Western Pennsylvania, where I'm from. But if I come off at all sounding like a hillbilly, that's where it's from.
In my head, my voice is deeper. And then when I listen back, I'm like, no, it's not deeper at all. It's this really weird sound that's coming out from my mouth.
It's not actually Mickey Mouse, though.
But yeah, once hearing it kind of really, it made me feel like, oh my God, do I really sound like this? And it's like how you take a selfie so many times and you're happy with the final picture. Pretty much this is how I sound.
Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about hearing my own voice because this is episode 1 and I haven't heard myself yet. So maybe you'll all come back and say you never want to hear my voice again. I hope not. And maybe one of us at least has a radio voice that sounds pleasant to everyone else. We'll find out.
And in our various discussions about the podcast, I mentioned that we needed an opening music. And unbeknownst to me, Pedi is like this super person who's well into musicals and singing. Well, I know about the singing bit because she was showcasing her talent at a karaoke bar in San Francisco. Anyway, I'll let her tell her story because I would love to know how she came up with the jingle.
Well, when Adrian approached me about the podcast, the first thing that popped into my head was that, oh, we need to have a neat name and a fun jingle. So, music or lyric-wise, I sort of challenged myself to come up with something upbeat, catchy, also kind of with the goal of becoming an earworm. I don't know if it'll work. I sat down at a piano keyboard and fiddled with it. I sang a little, recorded some. I must say that I learned a lot about the hidden features of this very simple Casio keyboard in that tinkering session. Then I sent off a rough cut to the group, and Adrian suggested I learn how to use Audacity to balance the levels of music and voice. So after watching a couple of excellent instructional YouTube videos, voila, you're listening to me harmonizing with myself at the beginning and at the end of the podcast.
I actually was super busy when Pedi was recording this, and I had no idea she was doing this, and I just went to listen to some of the clips that was shared in Google Drive, and I literally thought it was a professional doing it, and Well, I guess she is a professional because it was so amazing.
Same here. When I heard it, I was like, wow, this is so fun and peppy, and it really got me like, snapping my fingers. So yeah, Pedi really great at it.
And you came up with the name of the podcast as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I have a fairly useless skill for naming things, which I applied to this too. So loco means crazy. It has Spanish roots, I believe. So going loco means to go crazy, and it kind of felt like that's exactly what this whole local guides journey has been so far, especially with Connect Live event this year happening. It was just plain crazy, like good, mind-blowing crazy, but just, crazy. So Go Loco kind of felt like that suited us. Yeah, and it rhymes. Yeah, pretty happy with it.
I don't think it's a fairly useless skill. You have to be pretty creative. So I'm glad that you were able to put this together, Pedi. And I can't agree with you more. Ever since I've been involved as a local guides, definitely been a journey for myself as well. So I think this name really resonated with me when I heard about it.
I love it. It's very catchy, like you mentioned. It has a local flavor, and yeah, and it's also like global people are involved in it. It's like a local term for me.
And it's simple, it's straightforward.
Yep.
It's anybody in the world would be able to go look at it like, oh, okay, I get it. It's go local, go crazy. It sounds like local guide. So really well done for Patty for choosing the name. And I think we all really liked it. And, we were happy to go with it. Plus, it also means that we don't have to think about a backup name as well. I think that's great. So that's how we came to be. I hope that you all found that interesting. And just to remind you all again, we are just 5 folks stumbling along making this podcast and hoping to keep it going for the rest of the year, if not longer. Okay, so what are we going to do for future episodes? Well, I am trying to plan up to 6 episodes ahead. That's about 3 months, just so we can coordinate on time and resources. We have episodes 2, 3, and 4 packed down. I'm hosting episodes 2 and 3, while Shirley's hosting episode 4. I will talk a bit more about episode 2 later, but 3 and 4 is going to be hush-hush. For now, I want it to be a surprise when the time comes. We all have different ideas that we want to try out, and I'm thrilled to have everyone do their own thing. My personal agenda, which will dictate the overall structure for the next few episodes that I'm hosting, is to focus on Connect Live. Now, we don't know the exact dates, but the application for Connect Live 2019 should open around April time. And between now and then, I really wanted to highlight the event by bringing on guests to talk about the experiences there and to really get you all excited for it. I cannot stress this enough, but I just want as many people to know about Connect Live, why they should be excited for it, and how they can get themselves ready for the application. So folks, without going into specifics about your own ideas, what sort of episodes are you most keen to host?
I personally am excited to host things that highlight my fellow local guides. I have a lot of friends from the past 3 years of local guide summits, and a lot of them are doing some really cool things. And I think that I would like to talk to them about it and find out what inspired them to do that, because these are the kind of things that I would like to have come up with. And I think talking to them would inspire me to find something that I'm passionate about like they have. And hopefully it'll do the same for our listeners.
I think some of you may recognize my name from somewhere, but what exactly is that forum all about? We talked a little bit about it, but in the very near future, you're going to get the insider scoop. So you better tune in to find out what we're going to chat about. What about you, Vandana? What do you want to chat about?
Being a huge fan of visual way of storytelling, I'd like to do something about photography. I'd like to learn more about it, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners too would be interested. And there are so many forms of photography, and what an impact it can make. So, what are the different forms in which we can contribute to maps? All of those things I'd like to do something about, like to host an episode on that.
Any possibility of an open mic talent thing? Like, call in and read your poem, or sing your song, or rap, or tell a story. Because, people like stories, right? And I know a guy who can rap. Wait, I think we all do. Yo, Anthony! Shout out to Anthony!
Something else that very much would interest me is if we took a moment during the podcast to talk about what's new in Google Maps, because they're always adding things. And if you don't see the release notes or a notification, you never know it's there. And I enjoy all of the little dark nooks and crevices in Google Maps. I want to find all of the secrets. Been super lucky to have the chance to talk to some people pretty high up in the maps structure, and to be able to get one of them to come on and possibly talk about something that's newly released or of interest to them would be a real honor. So I'm hoping that maybe I can persuade someone to come on and do that.
Kim made a very interesting point that there are so many features and maps, and if you don't keep up with it, you might just miss out. I think on our podcast show, we can have maybe like a small little section that says, "Did you know?" And it could be some interesting feature that the audience can contribute, and we can just highlight that so that more people will get to know about it. It could be something like, tuning the restaurant matching percentage, and how do you really get to that and train it so that it shows you accurate matching scores.
And finally, I'm going to introduce episode 2. In about 2 weeks' time, it should be the week commencing 21st of January, you will be able to listen to the next podcast where I'm going to be featuring Vandana. Wahey! Okay, so what will this Vandana theme episode 2 going to be all about? Well, I'm really curious about Vandana's background, and I wanted to know more about who she is, how she came to decide to travel the world by herself, which leads on really nicely to how she got into the Local Guides program. And from there, how she applied for the Connect Live 2018. And Vandana is a first-time attendee at the Connect Live 2018 event last year. So I really wanted to find out more about that and let her tell you about her experiences there. And hopefully you guys will be motivated to apply as well. Besides that, on the 26th of January, it is going to be India's Republic Day. So I've got lots of questions for Vandana to find out more about what happens on that day, how the country is going to celebrate it, and what it means to her.
That's right. I'm like super excited, Adrian, to be talking to you about it. I can't wait to share all my travel experience. I'd really love to know what people think about it as well. So in case you have any questions about solo traveling, please send them over. In case you have had an experience, something extremely memorable, please share that. I'd love to know about it too. So I don't want to give away too much information, but during the beginning, I'd mentioned I've covered about 21 countries so far, and I would love to know how many countries our listeners have visited. So do send in how many countries you've ticked off.
Well, here we are at the end of the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the very first episode that we produced for you. It is a bit rough around the edges, but we will get better with time. Massive thanks to Vandana, Shirley, Pedi, and Kim. I'm sure that you've enjoyed having them on the episode, and for sure, you'll meet them again in future ones. Just a reminder, our next episode will be coming out in about 2 weeks' time. That's week commencing 21st January. We will be having a lovely chat with Vandana to find out awesome stuff about her. And as she has requested, let us know the total number of countries that you have visited so far. Or if you have any memorable travel experiences that you would like to share with us, maybe something related to Google Maps or Local Guides. Maybe you have a question for Vandana about her Connect Live application and experiences, or one on India, its culture, and its delicious food. Yum yum. And don't forget, we would also love to hear your thoughts on this podcast. Send us feedback on what you liked about it, maybe something that we can improve on, ideas for future episodes, or maybe you want to let us know about a cool Local Guides meetup or project that you're working on and it's coming soon. Share with us your thoughts on the Local Guides program and what it means to you, and you'll never know, but we might include you in the next episode's announcement section. And here are the ways you can get in touch with us. You can download the Anchor app from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store to leave us voicemails as you listen to this podcast, or you can record your message or your questions on your choice of app and send us the audio file to our email address, which is golocopodcast@gmail.com. That's GOLOCO podcast@gmail.com. And you can also find us all on the Local Guides Connect forum, which can be found at localguidesconnect.com. Whichever way you choose to contact us, always let us know who you are, where you're from, and your local guide level. And don't worry if you didn't quite catch all of that, as all this information will be included in the description of the podcast. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us all the way to the end. Thank you for listening in. That's a wrap for episode 1. From all of us here, let's guide!
Go local with us. Go local with adventure. Go local with